You're all I've ever wanted, but I'm terrified of you. Stick my castle may be haunted, but I'm terrified of you. I've cast my spell on millions, but I'm terrified of you. Baby, I do this from the ceiling, but I'm terrified of you. I wait my whole life to bite the right one. Then you come along and that freaks me out. So I'm frightened. Ooh, Dracula's one.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. I'm your host, Adam Portress, and joining me today, you can only kill him with a stake through the heart, sweet Shanza Kovacs from the internet.
I'm not sure what this opening song is this week, Adam. What is this?
This is Dracula's Wedding by Outkast.
Oh, it's very good.
Great double album, that one. And of course, he's bringing the blood, Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and his feet aren't the only things that are webbed, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know what you mean at all. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Hero Movie Podcast. This week, we are talking about Count Duckula. That's right. That's a thing. And something that I had not really thought about. I don't want to say I hadn't thought about it in a long time, but I hadn't watched an episode in probably 25 years. So all I remembered, honestly, was the opening song, and we'll play that in a couple of minutes.
You know, 25 years ago was like 1997.
Yeah, like I said, that's what last time. But
and you were still watching Count Duckula in 97?
I might have seen an episode. That's what I'm saying. Like,
okay. Fair enough.
As best, I've seen an episode maybe 25 years ago, probably closer to 30 years ago, where I watched it on the reg.
That you were like breaking out the old VHS tape and popping it in and saying,
he saw it on a real-time player.
You don't understand. I went down to the Nickelodeon, all right? And I got myself my quarter. I put it in there, and I had 3 Count Duckula features and still had money left over for candy. It was great. So, yeah, we're going to be talking about 2 episodes of Count Duckula this week, but before we do all that, we do want to say a big thank you to those that support us over at patreon.com/HMP. Doesn't matter what level you support this show at, you get pre-show, post-show, and let me tell you, we have a giant Dinger Zone for you that I don't know how long it is in the end, but it's well over a half hour's worth of Dinger Zone where we talk about our top 5 favorite TV theme show songs, and it's quite an episode. So please check that out over at patreon.com/HMP and help support this show at the exact same time. And if you can't do that, for heaven's sake, why don't you just jump on down to iTunes, give us a 5-star review, aka Humdinger.
Humdinger.
And this one comes to us. This is pretty good. It's entitled "Adding a Review from My Son's Phone."
Oh, boy.
5 stars from LHS Golfer 28. I'm sure they don't know about this one. But it reads as follows. I reviewed HMP months ago on my phone, and I had some time to kill, and I thought that I'd give my boy some HMP love on my son's phone. When I asked my son for his phone, my wife had a look of pride in her eye because she apparently thought I was doing the responsible thing and making sure our son wasn't up to no good on his phone. So when I told her I was actually giving a review to one of my favorite podcasts on his phone, the look of pride turned into a look that wives can give when their husbands can't, the looks that their husbands can't give their wives. Needless to say, it's going to be a while before I try this on our daughter's phone. Love the show, guys. Keep up the great work. This is from Justin Strawn, a.k.a. St. Kitts. So,
thank you.
Grab your closest relative's phone, drop us a review on iTunes. It's not against the law yet. Not yet, it's not. We don't have a trailer for our cartoon this week.
What? These 2 episodes don't have a combined trailer?
No. I tried to look, and they just didn't have it on ABC. But here is the theme song, which really gives you the idea of everything behind Count Duckula. From those lovely people at the Taverns.
Castle Duckula, home for many centuries to a dreadful dynasty of vicious vampire ducks, the Counts of Duckula. Legend has it that these foul beings can be destroyed by a stake through the heart or exposure to sunlight. This does not suffice, however, for they may be brought back to life by means of a secret rite that can be performed once a century when the moon is in the 8th house of Aquarius.
Blood.
Are you getting? The latest reincarnation did not run according to plan.
In the heart of Transylvania, in the vampire hall of fame, yeah, there's not a vampire any other. He won't bite, beast the man, cause he's a bad again, and things never If you're looking for some fun, you can always count upon the one they call
Count Duckula.
Alrighty, that was the opening for Count Duckula. You know what time it is.
It's time for Bruce's comic book connection.
Believe it or not, this has got a comic book connection. Bruce, what do you got?
Well, Count Duckula started his life as a villain for the suave and debonair hero Danger Mouse. Now, this foul creature, and I spelled foul with a W there just to maximize the pun factor. Also, like all humor, puns are always better when you explain them. But the foul creature was so popular that he got his own series in 1988, and that transformed him from a villain into a world-class anti-hero. The Count immediately got his own comic book published by Marvel imprint Star Comics, the same line that brought us jewels like the Ewoks comic and the Alf comic, also Heathcliff, Spider-Ham, and probably some other stuff. And these comics explored the nature of what it is to be Count Duckula in a way that the animated series never quite did. For example, due to ketchup being used in the resurrection ceremony in place of blood, well, this version of Duckula has ketchup rather than blood flowing through his ducky veins. Duckula also gained a romantic interest in the Star Comics run. He had a girlfriend named Vanna von Goosewing, who turned out to be the niece of his longtime adversary, Dr. von Goosewing. The Count Duckula comic only ran for 15 issues, so there were limits to how much in-depth analysis of the character could be done, but I assure you, if you read every issue in rapid succession, you will emerge from the experience with a whole new perspective on the world of vampiric waterfowl. And speaking of vampiric waterfowl, Adam, do you have a list?
So much foul, because if that comic connection wasn't enough for you, let me tell everybody on this show that I think ran for like 68 episodes, quite a while there, because this sucker's got everything. We got a Vincent Price knockoff, anthropomorphized talking ducks, an anthropomorphized talking vampire duck. We got airships, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, or Mr. Hyde meets Van Helsing, carpet und spot cleaner. We have milk to castle delivery, Mueslick smack talk, slipping a Mickey, Igor humping all, giant nanny with great lines like, I hope you wash that before putting it in your mouth. More accents than you can shake a stick at, cutlery and chairs, small British crow criminals, building scaling, dust humor. Did I mention there's a mythic saxophone? The Hollywood Bowl, house transportation, Egypt, Anubis, clock bats telling laugh-in jokes, trapdoors, vaudeville jokes, Abbott and Costello jokes, wall smashing, slingshot shooting, tomb raiding, trapdoors galore. What do you do with a drunken sailor? Mummies, not a pair of pants in sight. This show's got everything.
It definitely does.
Had you guys ever, had this been a show that was on you guys' radar previous to any of this?
Not really for me.
And let me answer your question with another question, because you seem to be the only person who ever watched this show. Mm-hmm. Where did you see this show?
Got to be network television.
It was on Nickelodeon. I'm going to vote for Nickelodeon.
That's, you know what? You know what? Now that you say that, that's probably correct, actually. Yeah, I would put good money this was a Nickelodeon show. Mm-hmm.
Nickelodeon is where I watched Danger Mouse, because I did like Danger Mouse, but by the time this got its spinoff in 88, I had aged out a little bit of this kind of stuff. But I do have some strong memories of Danger Mouse is when I was at somebody's house who had Nickelodeon because I didn't have it at my house.
Yeah, this probably puts me in the 6, 7. I probably watched it when I was really about 8, so it's probably a whole bunch of Nickelodeon reruns. I would put good money on that. Then that sounds right.
I think because I have no memory of the show at all. I wouldn't put it past myself that I just kind of lumped it in with all of the Disney Duck stuff because they were going full blown duck stuff on Disney.
Boy.
I mean, with Darkwing Duck and with DuckTales and Uncle Scrooge and all of this stuff, I probably lumped this in with that is my guess.
Yeah, I mean, if you had asked me to describe it, I would have sworn it was like some character from DuckTales universe.
Yeah. Yes. I literally, this is the first time I've ever seen the show this week.
Yeah. Well, oddly enough, I kind of picked these episodes at random just because they were what was available easily on YouTube and everything. And surprise of surprise, the first one, No Sex Please, We're Egyptian, was actually the first episode of the first season in September 1988.
Oh, really?
It was made into an audiobook.
What?
Yes, I'm not lying. I read that it was made into an audiobook in the version of a cassette tape where one side of the cassette tape was No Sax Please, I'm Egyptian, and then the other side of the cassette tape was a different episode, and it came with a Count Duckula figure if you bought it.
That's crazy.
Oh, wow. There is a guy who breaks down every episode of the show.
For real?
Yes, like super in-depth breakdowns on a blog. And so I looked this up while looking for the Stallone connection this week. I found this guy. And he has every single episode. It is a massive breakdown of every episode of the show. So there are super fans for this show out there somewhere. I'm just not one of them. But I think that it's one of those shows, much like what it feels like with me talking to you about this, Adam, is that when you were a kid, because it's something that like an American show doesn't have very often, and this British show does, is that there is mention of murder on this show. In both episodes that we have that we watched this week, there is, there's a bit of macabre, like humor. And I think kids take to that. I think that when there's actual jeopardy involved in things, I think that kids take to it more than what Disney and Nickelodeon and, whatever American shows are pumping out there, because they're so wholesome that you don't have any mention of any of these things ever. And so to have a show like this where like you learn at one point, you learn that Igor has so many murders behind him and, just stuff like that where, I could see where being 9 years old, you just immediately take to the show. Cause it's not actually spooky, but it's kid spooky.
Exactly. And that for me was really because, around this time, I am a scaredy cat little kid. So the fact that like I could watch something like this and kind of have that sort of like spooky thing. Oh, look, vampires and stuff, but it not necessarily actually be scary. It's that
right.
Nice,
it makes you feel like. Right, it makes you feel like a big boy when you watch it.
It's like, oh, look at this. And honestly, the fact with, in the opening scenes there where there's like a pentagram and stuff on the ground, I'm like, how did my parents let me watch this? That's certainly, if they had walked in on that, they'd have been like, no, we're canceling cable.
In a preacher's household, no less.
I know it's, a British production, a UK production. But the sense of humor is like a mix of vaudeville and Benny Hill that makes me think that this was something that tried to give the parents something to giggle at while the kids were watching the cute animals on screen.
That's the same company that puts out Benny Hill, so.
What's that?
Same company that puts out Benny Hill, so there you go.
Exactly. But I mean, it is not, when I'm watching it now, I'm thinking like, this is stuff that kids aren't really going to think is funny, at least a lot of it. I mean, the visual gags, sure, but it really did sort of have like the subtle jokes that are there. The wry stuff that's there for folks that, have a sense of perspective with things like the Three Stooges and Benny Hill and old vaudeville bits.
And that's one of the things, too, that's kind of surprising, especially for like a kid's show, is that it's not wall-to-wall wacky action and stuff like that. There is a crap load of dialogue in this show explaining story beats and stuff for kids. It doesn't treat the kids as if they're dumb. Like it doesn't feel like it's dumbing it down for anybody. It's just kind of going through and saying, hey, here's what's going on.
And I think much like the Flintstones, this was trying to catch adult audiences as much as children. I think that's part of why it's written in that fashion.
We need to ask our people across the ways there, like when this was aired for them. Was this like a Saturday morning cartoon kind of thing, or was this like, I don't know how...
And while we're asking our friends across the pond, the next question I have is about this as well. Is Count Duckula supposed to be American on this show?
That's a good question, because like
He's
accent...
supposed to be from Quacksylvania, right?
Right, but his voice, it seems like a British person trying to do an American accent.
That is exactly what it is. The voice actor is British. He's who wrote most of the episodes. He's actually more than just the voice actor, and he's trying to do what he described as a vaudeville American accent. Borscht Belt. I'm sorry, not vaudeville. Borscht Belt American comic accent.
I see.
But you can definitely tell that's where a lot of their kind of humor and comedy for this show ends up coming from. And I don't know, for what it's worth in this location, it kind of works. I mean, we literally have a who's on first situation going on.
I was going to say I'm not going to break down the geographic accuracies of the dialects on this show in particular.
On a 30-year-old cartoon.
Yeah, where like they're in Quacksylvania, but most of the people are British except for the inexplicably Borscht Belt Don Rickles-esque duck.
I've got to tell you, I hate this show. I absolutely hate it.
For real though?
Oh my God, I hate it so much. I was sort of on the fence until the who's on first thing, and I was like, okay, I'm done. Like I'm never gonna watch this again ever. I like the animation style. I think that part's neat because it looks different from everything else that you see, especially during that time on American television. So that part's cool. And I like the character design of Count Duckula himself. Like I like that look of that character. But oh my God, this is an insufferable, the longest 22 minutes of my life. I had to break it up into 2 different days because I was like, I cannot watch another second of this thing.
Man, if you're breaking episodes of Count Duckula over multiple days, I think it's fair to say you're not going to be a fan.
Right. And it's
or you don't want to go through your whole stash in the first day. You know what I'm saying?
Or maybe you love it so much you're trying to savor.
I've done
You're
that.
rationing out the Duckula.
I've got books I never finished because I was just like, well, if it's finished, I'm never done with it.
This book's so good, I'm not going to read another page.
You got that right.
I mean, the puns are all, it makes it everything that I like. The style of humor that I hate is all here in the same thing. So like you have the puns, you have the Benny Hill stuff, you have the dumb like 70s style, Looney Tunes style like sound effects that I hate. Because the 70s Chuck Jones stuff from Looney Tunes is awful. Yeah. Like I've always hated that stuff. And so the stuff from the 40s and the 50s is the best. Anyway, it really feels more like 1981 than 1988. You might think 7 years wouldn't make that much of a difference, but between 81 and 88, animation was revolutionized almost. Yes.
Yeah, well, and that's the kind of thing too. And I feel like there's also a different feel to it, thus being British and everything as well, because the animation styles and all that are going to be way different. And some of that I actually kind of like is those nice wide shots where it's like sometimes it's filled in really well, sometimes it's very bare and stuff. It's a very comic-esque sort of art in a lot of ways.
It is. And because it is like a foreign entity, I gave it more leeway than I would something from America. It's just the way that I operate for some reason. But, about 10 minutes in, I was like, boy, this is taking forever. So I knew that, and I hadn't even gotten to the point yet where I was just getting physically angry at the show. That didn't happen till later.
I also kind of wonder, like, just from a character design and sort of big picture, not on execution per se, but as I'm watching this, I'm starting to wonder if somebody like the Hirsch guy that does Gravity Falls, or the guy that does Steven Universe, if they were somewhat influenced by something like this. Like, that's what I need to hear to at least give me some perspective, is to find out what, like, cool storyteller in the animated world now is like a fan of this or inspired by this, because I could maybe see just a hint of Gravity Falls with some of the character designs here, and like the way Nanny has her arm in a sling and we never know why. Like, there's a character on Gravity Falls that has like pink eye the whole time, and then you finally find out why she does, like many episodes deep. It's just cool stuff.
That was my question for Adam, because she does always have that broken arm. Do we know why?
Not to my recollection. I don't know, but I will say this. Between this show and Muppet Babies, I think I understand why I called my grandma Nanny. I get it.
Yeah.
And honestly, Nanny in this is kind of like, she's gone from this world. So, but she was a big gal. Like, she's a big German lady. So she was, a stout lady, just like Nanny in a lot of ways. So
did she tend to not use doors and instead walk directly through walls?
Not as much as, in the later years.
Not as much as this Nanny. Oh, man. Now, guys, tell me, was I reading too much into it, or was I reading it the way I was supposed to? But I got the feeling Nanny is really, really sexually repressed. Like, she's really looking to get her hands on a man.
That's what you got out of this show?
Oh yeah, Nanny just can't wait.
Who could care? Is what I would say to you on this.
You didn't feel those sparks between Nanny and Igor.
I
didn't pay enough attention to it, but I think that this is the style of show that's probably there, I would say.
The thing is, with Nanny, this show, even within these 2 episodes, has shown us that she's probably at least mentally capacitated to some degree. She's not a bright gal, because when they have that moment where she gets kind of, bamboozled and everything and becomes an incredibly erudite, articulate person, and then, it's the get kicked by a donkey and the eyes go back. I don't know, that kind of thing. So, like, all of a sudden she becomes dumb again, go like, oh, don't put my finger in my eye. There's just crap like that going on. We're like, oh, she's dumb again. The crayon up the nose.
Yeah, or hitting her head under the sink.
Yeah, those were, and what I liked about the first episode was the fact that I had forgotten that the actual castle and everything transports. I'd forgotten about that, and then
so that's not a one-off.
No, if memory serves, when I saw that, I was just like, oh yeah, that's kind of a thing of how it kind of they get
you
to
do
the
that
next.
in the first episode, then that's going to be your solution to, well, what are we going to write about this week? How about they transport to France?
Exactly, you transport the house to someplace else. Boom,
That's
there
how they
you
got
go.
68 episodes out of this. They bought a map.
But yeah,
I do have to say it was a nice touch that at the end of that episode, they're out and they have been stranded by the house. I think that part's neat.
Yeah, it's standing out in the middle of the desert with a sign trying to hitchhike back to where Quacksylvania, is that right?
Where did they get the marker
DuckTales,
from?
it would be Quacksylvania, but here they seem to miss the puns a little bit here, so it's probably like Ducksylvania when Quacksylvania works better.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And then, so that was that first episode where they travel. And I love, again, another thing that's great about this is, like, when you look at all the walls, all the hieroglyphics and stuff, there is stuff where you can pause and see a lot of really interesting stuff that they just kind of pan by super quick and everything. I love stuff like that.
The other thing I want to say is that the no sax please were Egyptian, as you guys probably have guessed, is it's a play on a farce, a British farce called No Sex Please We're British.
Yeah.
And so I did not know that existed until I looked it up this week, because I was like, that sounds like a reference to something. And there you go.
And then you had episode 22 of that first season, February 14th, 1989. So we're like practically right on top of the anniversary of this. So that's
no wonder
fantastic.
This one was a love story.
It was indeed. So this we have the introduction of Dr. Goosewing. Though Dr. Goosewing he is slightly in the background in the first Egypt episode, but we'd only get introduced to him in this 22nd episode. So we got kind of a Van Helsing sort of thing going on.
Crazy to wait till the last episode of the season to introduce the primary nemesis.
I guess it's an odd one. So here's the plot line for that one. Goosewing creates a formula for carpet stain removal. When accidentally drunk, the victim becomes the complete opposite of their original selves. Von Goosewing becomes a vampire. Duckula becomes a real vampire. Igor becomes loving, and Nanny becomes intelligent. Like I love stupid crap like that. That's the only thing that can work out is like in animation and 80s sitcoms.
I just love the fact that the secret formula was carpet cleaner. We don't know what it is until after he's already consumed it, because he stores it right next to his hot coffee, just conveniently. Van Goosewing does. But then I'm sitting there thinking, okay, so this is 80s cartoon. I'm not going to hold it too high. He's going to have a formula that's supposed to do exactly what this does, but it turns out it's carpet cleaner. I don't know why that just hit me right, but it really hit me absolutely right that he's the kind of guy who flies around in a blimp and works on his own carpet cleaning formula.
That feels very Bruce Leslie-ian to me.
It does. It sounds like you wrote it.
Yeah, it's just like, well, he flies around in a dirigible making carpet cleaner because you have carpet in one of those.
I came here to do two things: clean carpets and kill vampires, and I'm all out of carpets.
And I've drank all this carpet cleaner, so it's time to go after a vampire. Why not?
And I do like his logic that if he drinks it and it turns him into a monster, then if Count Duckula drinks it, it'll turn him into a regular person. But then it turns out he's not actually a vampire because it turns him into a real vampire when he drinks it.
Quite the scientist this quote-unquote doctor is.
Well, what kind of scientist has his interests that diversified? Usually you kind of focus on something and niche down. This guy's flying dirigibles, cleaning carpets, and hunting vampires. He's not a scientist. He's a science hobbyist.
Yeah, I dabble in a little bit of science here and there just to see what happens.
I do have to say I'm very shocked that they didn't make that joke of, that he is a bad doctor, and so they call him a quack. I'm very shocked they did not make
the problem
joke.
Is he's a goose, so he would honk.
Oh, I see. There you go.
Yeah, I'm sure the writers thought of that and then they shot it down for just that reason.
Mm-hmm.
Jeremy, how dare you? That is not what we do here. This is a goose. You're an idiot.
Is that your British accent?
That's this guy.
It's just Quacksylvania. Oh yeah, I do like that the guy's kind of German, maybe.
Yeah, he's very German. I would
like
say
Sherlock Holmes. They're like, we got to. The kids don't know enough about Van Helsing, so we'll throw a little Sherlock Holmes on him.
Yeah, he's Van Helsing. He's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. He's also it's just keep guessing as to what characters that we can rip off something from and just shove it into this show.
Something's gonna stick.
Because if you take all the things, then that makes your thing original. Then
look, man, American cartoons have been doing this forever. I can remember that guy on the TV show Mask who sounded like Jack Nicholson. I mean,
yeah,
you steal from wherever you can.
I'm familiar with Christian Slater's career. Yeah,
or Jabberjaw sounds like Curly.
That really was all the best when you look back.
If we're gonna call a spade, the Flintstones was the honeymooners in the Stone Age.
Oh yeah,
right.
It was just perfect, and we all just sat there and be like, "Yeah, that's what we want to watch."
After
Shut up.
Hanna-Barbera started stealing all of this stuff, all their cartoon companies were like, "Hey, we can do that too."
Yeah,
we can.
Instead of a dog, it's a shark.
We're gonna steal from ourselves.
There were like 8 Scooby-Doos where instead of a dog, it was just something else, and everything else exact same formula.
It's your speed buggy.
Yeah,
it's a car instead of a dog.
Fang face, it's a werewolf. I mean, there was nothing they couldn't stretch it to.
You're like, listen, they're stupid kids. Kids will watch anything. You put it in there if it's colorful enough, have some wacky sound effects and music. Guess what? Every kid's gonna love it.
It's true. You watched Count Duckula as a kid.
Yeah, this
exactly. Might be kind of like a Sophie's Choice to you, Sean. But which of these two episodes did you prefer? No Sax, Please, or Dr. Goosewing and Mr. Duck?
I think the No Sax, Please, just because it's more adventure and they're not stuck in the stupid mansion the entire time. But
and it did kind of start rocking once they actually played the saxophone. We didn't mention that.
Yeah, it sure did rock.
That's
how I would
rocking. So much rocking.
Yeah. I think that it's and also I'm a sucker for the two characters who are off on the side commenting on what's happening on the action. And so to have those two camels talking about what's happening, that was, I wouldn't say it was good, but at least it's not who's on first.
They were like the Statler and Waldorf for this show.
Yes.
And I think the bats coming out of the cuckoo clock and doing those little jokes and everything, if memory serves, that's a recurring bit as well.
Oh, is it?
Which I like. I'm like, yeah, you give me one of those where you look over at the characters and just be like, there's a bunch of crap going on right here.
That feels the most Flintstones of anything. That's the bird saying, it's a living.
It does. But, growing up with, you can't do that on television. I know it started on Laugh-In, but having that moment, it was like, it's like, oh, yeah, I recognize what style of joke this is, which is, it's what this show is. It's just a bunch of different things thrown together that, you just do what you can, I guess. Yeah,
I think to a lot of degree, it is for better or for worse, and it can be both of those to be sure. The whole show is like a joke delivery machine. They're just like, oh, here's another little thing that we can throw in. Here's another little, we just crank it out.
I know it's from the same creators as Danger Mouse, but I don't know what else they've ever created or worked on. But to me, and you tell me if you feel this is different, guys, but to me, it feels like it's some people that have never really done a comedy that think it'd be easy to do a comedy.
Yes, it absolutely feels like that. It feels like people who saw something else and went, oh, we can do that. And it just doesn't work at all. And sometimes it's the people, like, what I'm thinking about when we're talking about this right now, because it is kind of in the same vein. The Justice League International from after Crisis, those issues when I was a kid were hilarious. But then once that creative group came back in the early 2000s to kind of like do these miniseries based on those same characters, it wasn't nearly the same anymore because that joke had already been pulled. And so it felt watered down. And that's what this show feels like to me. It feels like people who are watching other people do comedy and go, oh, we can do that. And then it's lesser than for the experience.
Yeah, I think I agree with that's kind of the feeling I got from it.
Oh, and I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the narrator of the show, Barry Clayton, who is clearly just doing the best Vincent Price that he possibly can.
Sure.
Yeah. I gotta say, it's a pretty good Vincent Price.
It's pretty good.
I'm
not gonna besmirch the guy.
Not bad at all. Word is, I don't know how this may be apocryphal, but the word is that Vincent Price heard about this and was angry that he wasn't asked because he said he would do it. I don't know how true that story is, but at that point in his life and career and everything, I'm sure that would have been a nice little paycheck for him to.
Well, here's what I'm thinking is Vincent Price should hire this Clayton guy, like split the dough 50-50, and he just tells people that he's doing the VO, gets the Clayton guy to do it and sends it in. It's like win-win.
It's like, it's close enough. You got to have those like.
How much money do you think Michael Jackson gave Vincent Price for doing the opening for Thriller? Do you think that he's like short cheated him, or do you think that he paid him well?
He probably gave him the same treatment that he did Eddie Van Halen. It's called, you don't even get a credit on this, boy. Get out of here.
No, he got treated better than Eddie Van Halen on that because he's just too identifiable. But I don't think it was Michael Jackson making that call. I mean, wasn't Casey Jones his producer at that point?
Oh, Quincy Jones. Yeah, you're
Quincy
right.
Jones.
Casey
Jones was coaching the Celtics. Sorry.
No, he was hanging out with the Ninja Turtles in a hockey mask. I'm sitting there going,
he was
like,
driving that train high on cocaine. Quincy Jones is who probably, hopefully for Vincent's sake, he gave him points. That'd be a nice song. If you're going to get points on a song, it should be Thriller.
But yeah, Barry Clayton gone in 2011. So sadly, he can't continue on his legacy of doing Vincent Price's voice and stuff. But I don't know. Listen, I big fan of this show when I was a kid. Does it hold up as well? It's about, I don't know. It feels like it's about the same as what I remember. But when you're 9 years old or whatever watching this, it is what it is, I suppose.
Well, let me Let me ask you this question, Adam, because when like Bruce and I run into this all the time because we watched some really terrible shows when we were kids. Is it one of those things when you rewatch this, because like you said at the beginning, you haven't seen any of these in 25 years. Is it one of those things where when you're watching it, it's bringing you back and it's like and it feels good to watch, or is it one of those things where when you're watching it, you're just kind of going,
No, this wasn't. I didn't have the latter reaction with this one like I did when watching the animated Beetlejuice show after years later. For that one, I was just like, "Oh, we must have been dropped on our heads as children because this is something for kids that have some developmental problems and are not really. They're just like, ooh, pretty colors." At least this show has like a lot of dialogue and stuff in it to where it feels like, well, maybe not the tippiest top of writing and everything. At least it feels like somebody sat down and said, we're going to write out this story. We're going to make it like an actual narrative. It's got a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it's not just like, haha, kids jokes. Because honestly, they clearly didn't have the budget to, go 8 billion places, have 8 billion things. That's why we have an entire episode that is just literally stuck inside the house. A bottle episode in a cartoon, no less. We're just like, oh, we can't go anywhere. Just keep the animation to inside the house. And the way that they do it too is that all of these, they look like very painted backgrounds for the most part. So it lends a higher quality to that, and that kind of stuff would continue in animation, later on, where it's just like kind of high quality character designs and everything in the background, just a little bit more muted and not nearly as detailed and everything. A lot of Sunday comics do that as well. But ultimately, I like it.
Do either of you guys though have like any sweet spot or any favorite things you can recall of British animation? Like, I don't know that there's a real strong tradition in British animation.
Yeah, to me, it all feels like a bit like Yellow Submarine, quite honestly. Yeah. Where all the animation style is that style, kind of. I think is the Lord of the Rings cartoon, is that from Britain as well?
That was
that's a question maybe Adam would know. Bakshi, what was Bakshi?
I'm not sure. That's a good question.
Because if that is British, that's my sweet spot, because that is still my favorite Lord of the Rings. Is the Hobbit from Bakshi.
So yeah, I'm just thinking, I didn't know if there's really been a big British animation crossover success story. So I mean, I'm not saying there's not. I just can't recall any.
Yeah, I mean, I know that Danger Mouse is beloved, and
that's the most recognizable, but it's pretty far down the list for most folks.
Yeah, that's the thing. The funny thing is when I hear Danger Mouse, all I can think of is the that Jay-Z album, the black and white album that they put together, and they call it the Gray Album by Danger Mouse, and it's a combination of those two albums, and it's pretty darn good. Yeah, Jay-Z meets the Beatles. Come on.
So Bakshi was born in the British Mandate of Palestine, because that's how old he was.
Oh, so, wow. That is old.
Yeah. I don't know if people identify him as Israeli now or what, but anyway, yeah. So he has the British connection by being in what was at the time a British colony in 1938, like just before it was no longer, but it's now, now the land is controlled by Israel, and I don't want to go into that. So yeah,
why not? Why not? Is it the third rail?
I skipped history that day.
Here's the thing: I wouldn't have put money on this one. Bakshi's still alive.
Get out of here!
Still alive, 83 years young.
Wow!
Holy moly! So
he's working on the newest season of My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic.
Is that right?
No, I made that.
I wouldn't be. Listen, man, I wouldn't be shocked. Sometimes these legends and stuff can get those filler jobs where just like, get somebody in here that's really big, and makes like we'll look good to the higher ups.
You were talking about Sparkle Bright earlier. That's funny. It reminds me of when I was working on Wizards.
Shut up, Ralph. We want him out of here. Every single meeting. All right. Before we get to our final review here and everything, we do have to ask ourselves one very important question: is how this animated British television program relates back 1-to-1 with Sylvester Stallone. This should be an interesting one.
Why, thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement. Mr. Stallone, if you were to watch Count Duckula, I think you might get 30 seconds in and say, this is not for me. And go back to typing your screenplay about a 75-year-old man who is awesome and that a 30-year-old woman finds sexually attractive. Or maybe you would paint. I don't know what you do for fun, quite honestly. But whatever the case, it would be a mistake not to watch the Count Duckula episode entitled No Sax, Please, We're Egyptian. It's hard to sit through, but near the top of the episode, your name is mentioned. And honestly, I'm very glad it was, because if it wasn't, I would have some super lame Stallone connection this week. Something about how one time you were in London and blah, blah, blah. We're spared that because of this episode. The exact line in Count Duckula is, they're into two strange figures with weird hair looking like the Walking Dead, to which Count Duckula responds, I know, Sylvester and Stallone, huh? Hey, Sly, Count Duckula thinks you have weird hair and resemble the Walking Dead. I must say, it's surprising that you've never actually been in a zombie movie, Sly. It seems like your type of thing, but since you haven't, I would like to pitch to you today my idea for a zombie movie starring you, Sylvester Stallone. We open on the apocalypse. All of the bowling alleys are wrecked. Everything everywhere is dirty and dusty until we pan to a gated, massive home that's been secured for the end of times. It's perfect. Solar panels, electrified fencing, a gun turret towards the top of the house, completely impenetrable. As we go through the fence, through the yard to the front door, we see a mailbox attached to the front of the house. It reads Stallone. When we get inside the house, we see a man in his 70s sitting in a high-back leather chair and sitting in front of a working fireplace. As the camera changes angles, we learn this man sitting in the chair is you, Sylvester Stallone. You have survived the zombie apocalypse. In fact, it looks like you're actually doing quite well for yourself. We cut back to the fence line of your fortress and we see a woman in her 30s running for her life. She's being chased by the undead and you see the trouble she's having on your security monitors. It's been a long time since you've seen another human being, so you decide to let her in. The problem is she's just let the zombie horde know that there's people here, and the horde just keeps growing. The electric fence is electrocuting them, but you know it won't hold out forever, and the pack keeps growing exponentially by the hour. With maximum carnage, you and this lady keep taking out zombies, but they keep advancing. In the melee, we learn that this 30-year-old lady has a secret. Yes, she does find you sexually attractive, but she also knows how the zombies came to be in existence, and she's tangentially related somehow. Will the biggest movie star of the 80s survive? How come the amazingly fit woman in her 30s keeps taking off more and more layers of clothes? Why do you keep making snarky jokes while your life is in peril? Find out when Sylvester Stallone plays Sylvester Stallone in Stallone Alone, rated R. And there you have it. This week's Stallone connection is Count Duckula himself, thankfully. I'll attempt to be better next week, but no promises. Your pal, Sweet Chauncey from the internet.
You see, these are the reasons why people need to contact Sylvester Stallone and let him know that this show exists, because we got money-making ideas right here for him. Like
It's
we're
just
printing
sitting there on the table.
It's here for your consumption. Have at. Why not? Well, over here at Hero Movie Podcast, we have our own patented Robin rating system. No stars, no letter grades. That's ridiculous. If you want to see what that Robin rating system looks like, head on over to our subreddit, reddit.com/r/Hero Movie Podcast, right there at the top of the screen. Bruce, where do these two episodes, Dr. Goosewing, Mr. Duck, as well as, what was the other one? We're
No Sax, Please, We're Egyptian.
Fall on the Robin rating system for you.
There's the curiosity factor. Like, some people are going to watch it just because they're curious, and it does have the theme song that you like so well, Adam. It's going to look different. Like, it's not going to just be more of the same. So if you're only going to watch 2 episodes, I think I could go like low Damian Wayne on this, but there's no way I would recommend like making this series a regular watch and binging your way through. It's just a curiosity factor, Damian Wayne.
All right, Sean.
This is going to surprise everybody.
What?
Yeah. This is the lowest of low. This is a Jason Todd. surprising no one. I this is everything that I hate. And if I've learned anything from our time at WandaVision, it is sometimes you got to find them kernels. And so there are a couple of things that I like about the show, but I will never watch this again. And I am very pleased to know that fact. So it is a Jason Todd.
Well, I guess our annual, Count Duckula Halloween episodes are out. Great. No.
Unless you want to hear me rail on for an hour, which I totally could do.
Well, that's fair enough. For me, I was surprised. I really was ready to go back into this, loving that theme song, because I'd heard the theme song tons and tons after, but never really watched any of the episodes and stuff. So I was like, boy, is this going to be a case of I just really like the theme song, but the episodes are no good. Now, the episodes are not amazing, especially these two particular episodes, but I found them enjoyable enough, and it was kind of a walk down memory lane and everything for me. So I enjoyed them enough to where I'm going to say this is Tim Drake. It's very good. Enjoyable it was kind of, like I said, it's looking back at the old things and going,
Sure.
it wasn't all that bad. Or like,
Sure.
if I watched this and got some entertainment out of it, I must have been like at least paying enough of attention to the story to where I was, engaged in it. So I like it.
I totally get your rating. I mean, when looking through rose-colored glasses, like I totally understand that.
Listen, I mean, I'll be the first person to say nostalgia glasses are a big giant thing. I'm like,
for sure,
the Muppet Babies are not it's not a fantastic show, but God, did I love it growing up? And
of course, you can't be faulted for it.
Can't do nothing about it, man. It's just in the bones. So that'll do it, everybody, for this episode of Hero Movie Podcast. We'll talk about what we're doing next week in just a moment. But in the meantime, Bruce, where can we find more of your work on the internet?
You can go check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/C/Bruce Leslie. And I just did my final reaction video for the Entertainment District arc of Demon Slayer. It all wrapped up earlier today, and I've got that all bundled up and bowed up and out there for the world to enjoy. And I'll be covering Attack on Titan here real soon. So just go check it out. There's lots of cool reactions and reviews and a few other odds and ends over there at my YouTube channel, Bruce Leslie.
Get bowed up, everybody. Sean, what else?
We are about to record the final episode of the Book of Boba Fett, 30 questions. So please listen to that. We've got a banger coming. So please listen to the... I guess it's HMP, the HMP version of the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah. And over at the Film Find, I've been dropping some stuff. I got a Film Find 5 for the review of Mel Brooks' book, which is fantastic. And I just put out an episode about Jackass Forever and Pledge Night from the 1980s, and I'll have a new one coming out very soon. My Nick Cage match, where I'm going to be reviewing Pig, Willy's Wonderland, and Prisoners of the Ghostland. And I'm going to be having, I think, a couple other Film Find 5 ideas that I'm going to be putting out there as well. So do check out the Film Find wherever you find finer podcasts. That will do it for this episode of Hero Movie Podcast. Next week, we are continuing on with Peacemaker, everybody. That's right. We got episodes 4 through 8 available now on HBO. So we'll be watching those and coming up with our final grade for that. And if we want to see more of those things coming down the way, if nothing else, we certainly got some more James Gunn programming coming at some point, because I think after he does Suicide Squad, he's going back to some more DC stuff and everything. So that guy...
Guardians of the Galaxy.
What did I say?
Suicide Squad.
Oh, well, yes. He did do the Suicide Squad, but after that, Guardians of the Galaxy, and then he's going to be doing more DC stuff. So it's all over the place, man. So we'll be checking out Peacemaker. That is it, everybody. Join us next week for Peacemaker. For Sweet Sean Kovacs from the internet, Bruce Leslie, I'm Matt Portress. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Evie.
If you're feeling